as well this week, the last 2 weeks. So Tom and Rob, you've been playing about with Steam controller and Link systems, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yes.
So how long have you had them for now? How long have you been trying them out?
2 weeks, week and a half, roughly.
Yeah,
I
something
think.
like that.
Something along those lines. Yeah.
So I think with game development, as you know, controllers have always been quite a touchy subject. So we had the Wii controllers come out, which everyone sort of liked, and we also had the Wii U remote, which generally had a bit of a different reaction. So PlayStation have also, tried with their PlayStation Move controllers, and generally a lot of the controllers we've been seeing developed over the last few years have mainly been about motion and moving around. Stuff like the Kinect has come out as well. For me, the problem with those kind of controllers is that to do really simple things like swing a sword, I've always thought controllers should get sort of more smaller and more precise movements, so you can do more by moving around less. I guess we're also seeing the Oculus controllers coming out now, which have one-to-one like hand and almost finger tracking, which is like a step in the other direction. But for most typical gamers playing normal games, it can get. I think there hasn't been much innovation as far as the Xbox and PlayStation controllers have gone. So what Steam have released is sort of a highly customizable game controller that has a touch-based haptic feedback panel, and that integrates with Steam and SteamOS. The game is made to play most normal games alongside games that typically require a keyboard and mouse controls. They've also, as well, released the Steam Link device, which allows people to play with their computer, to stream games from their computer directly to a TV and play sort of in their living room. So I guess first of all then, so Tom, you played with the controller for a bit. What are your initial impressions of it? Is this something that gamers should buy?
I will put it down to it entirely depends on what games you play, and I'm sure Rob will back me up on this. It is not good for fast-paced games.
It's not good for games.
To play something like in all fairness, nearly any first-person shooter, anything that requires you to do something fast, do not go for the Steam controller. It's like I've been playing it since when I got it, was just literally trying out loads of different games to see how well it worked. And games that I found like Civ 5, XCOM, a lot of the like Telltale story adventures. Yeah. It works really, really well on. They're quite good because you don't necessarily have to instantly do something. However, when I was playing a few of first-person shooters, even like Borderlands and stuff like that with it, you can't turn fast.
Yeah.
So you kind of just end up being shot in the back while you spend 20 seconds turning around, at which point it's too late and you're dead.
So when you say you can't turn and stuff, isn't the controller adjustable so you can move it? Why is it? What is it that's bad about the controller specifically for those games?
You remember when you used to have those really crap mice and you would have to like drag it once and that'd be a quarter turn, and then you drag it twice and that'd be a half turn. It's kind of like that with a little pad. You have to flick it a whole way once, even if it's quite sensitive. That would be like a 45-degree turn. You got to flick it again to do the other 45 degrees turn round. So it's just, regardless of how customizable it is, it's not sensitive enough at some points, and there's just not enough space to really give you the full functionality, especially like Tom said in faster games. It's not workable.
Yeah. I think you just don't have the accuracy there as well that a joystick would provide. I mean, I don't know whether that's because I've only had it for a couple of weeks and I've had 18, 19 plus years of using a joystick, so it's just more that's what I prefer. But in my experience, you just don't, on a joystick you have so much more accuracy on where you want it and how far you want it, and the Steam controller kind of just seems a bit like, I want to go right, yeah, cool, you're kind of now pointing at the sky in some random direction,
yeah,
and it's the opposite way of where you want it to be. And also it's got these, it feels a lot like an old Xbox controller as well, where it's quite chunky in places it doesn't need to be chunky, so trying to get to the A, Y, X and B in a quick reaction, the sort of handholds get in the way a bit. You can't quite go, oh, I need to press A instantly. You kind of have to lean over to do it.
You got to lean over. They're the tiniest buttons I've ever seen on a control pad, and they've got this funny thing at the back, which is also a button, which is ultra sensitive. So as you're arcing around the control pad to find one of these minuscule buttons, you can quite often just slightly touch the back button thing they've added, which will trigger something that you really didn't want to happen in the game. If you've got it mapped to throw a grenade, then you're going to throw a grenade at your foot. It's just the whole experience has been painful on every game that I've tried it on now. It's not worth it.
Yeah, it does have the like back flappy panel controllers, which I know some people really like for first-person shooters and stuff like that, and I know a lot of professional first-person shooter like players that use controllers do use them, but for majority of games they are a bit not really required. I mean, like I said, it's great for turn-based games, and it's great for narrative-based, like slower narrative-based games, where you don't have to do anything quick. You can just sit back and do it at your own pace, effectively, and it doesn't have to be pinpoint accuracy because you have that time to adjust. But yeah, I mean, I've got both a Steam controller and a Xbox controller now at home, and depending on which game I'm playing, very, very determines on which one I plug in.
So what games have you played using it that have been quite good using the Steam controller?
Like I said, I played XCOM using it, and it's really good for XCOM. Civ 5, it's really good for. I've been playing the Game of Thrones Telltale Adventure as well, and again, it's very good for that.
See, I've tried it on XCOM now since you mentioned that, Tom, and I wouldn't say it's bad on XCOM, but it doesn't. I think the way they were selling it is that it feels like a void in the market that's not been hit by other controllers, and I don't think that void actually exists now that I've tried it. A mouse and keyboard is still perfectly good for XCOM.
Yeah, I mean,
it doesn't make it a better experience. I think having a controller which is good in very specific situations is probably a giant flaw in itself. And the only other good game I've played it on is Bastion, and that's because you don't need the trackpad. So any game which is only good because half the controller doesn't need to be used is, again, a bit of a flaw.
Yeah.
People are mentioning the price as well. How much does it cost for a Steam controller?
It's only 40 quid, so it is fairly cheap in comparison to some of the others.
It's about what you'd expect to pay for a controller, or slightly cheaper than what you'd expect to pay. I mean, for mine as well, I've also got the Steam Link when it came out.
Yeah.
Which obviously lets me, so I can plug that into my TV and stream my computer to my TV effectively. So I can play all my games on a slightly bigger set monitor and stuff. Which it does come in a bit of handy there because it doesn't just stream Steam Big Picture, which is what I thought it did. It actually streams the entire screen, so I can use it for stuff like surfing the internet and stuff like that. Which I mean, it does come in handy there because it is, instead of having to then plug the Steam Link into a TV and then plug a keyboard and mouse into the Steam Link, I can just wirelessly connect the Steam controller and use that as a mouse to browse or to select stuff and whatnot. So it kind of has its advantages there. But yeah, going back to what Rob said, it's not really a void in the market necessarily. If I'm playing XCOM at my computer, I use my keyboard and mouse. I won't go, oh, let's pick up the Steam controller because it's better. I'd still say it's better with a keyboard and mouse to actually play the game.
Yeah.
But from a point of I can go sit in my living room and play XCOM, it's then easier to use the Steam controller than try and hook up a keyboard and mouse to my TV and play on the floor effectively at that point.
So I guess with it, and one of the main things they said about this was that it would be able to replace the keyboard and mouse for most games. And I guess to a point it does that job well. I mean, it's quite a difficult thing to do. I guess as well, Jack, do you tend to play with like a keyboard and mouse? Do you play any games with a controller at all?
Yeah, I play a lot of games with the controller. I would agree with the others that Steam controller or no, it really depends on what game you're playing.
Yeah.
But I mean, people in the chat were saying earlier that someone was saying that they thought that the Xbox controllers were the best, and I agree with that. When I heard about the Steam controller, I didn't really I haven't tried one, so I don't know. But I just didn't understand what I would ever need it for. If I'm doing an FPS, I'm happy with keyboard and mouse. MOBAs, keyboard and mouse. Like action, third-person games, controller, and those systems work for me. And I never really understood what the Steam controller would offer me that I can't just get with an interface I'm already comfortable when using.
Yeah. I mean, go on, Tom. Anything?
I just agree. I mean, I've brought it and I've used it for some games, but honestly, unless you do have this, unless you're going to buy the Steam Link as well, it's kind of pointless.
Sure.
It really is. So unless you're going to fork out the extra £40 for that and the Steam controller together, there isn't really a point in buying a Steam controller. You're better off buying a 360 controller or an Xbox One controller or a third-party controller for the same price or less, because it's going to be a lot comfier and a lot easier to use, and then just use the keyboard and mouse for any keyboard and mouse based games.
Yeah.
So it looks like I'm going to be sticking with my Xbox controller, I think, then for the main part.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it doesn't fill that void of playing on a computer with a controller, and then the games that if you're buying it as a controller, it's not as functional and as easy to use as a traditional controller.
Yep.
And if you're buying it for the keyboard and mouse functionality, you may as well use a keyboard and mouse unless you're playing remotely.
No, that makes sense. Oh, Valve and their over-promising of controllers that actually work and do well when really we're getting the same old. Well, something that doesn't even work well with stuff. But, I guess they're innovating. Early days, first controller, they're still trying to get their hardware done, so we'll see how that comes across.